In this lesson, we'll be painting Roman-O-Gi molding. The first step is to draw this on watercolor paper. There's a line drawing in Blackboard for your reference. We'll go from this to this. The colors we'll use for this project are lamp black, mauve, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, orange yellow, yellow mid, and white. We'll begin by mixing a base color. I'm using yellow ochre and some orange yellow. I'll also mix in a little bit of water. Use this base color and paint the entire molding with it. Now we'll mix the shade color. We'll use burnt sienna and some yellow ochre. Then I'll mix a super shade with burnt umber and mauve. Then I'll mix a tint color with white, yellow mid, and a little bit of yellow ochre. It's important that the base color is dry before moving on to the next step. Now we're going to lay down a series of colors in a gradation to give shape to the Roman-O-Gi. We'll start with the super shade color. Then we'll go into the shade right underneath, and then the base. We'll blend these three together using a clean brush. It doesn't matter if you run the paint long at this point. Now we'll lay down the tint color in the middle. Switch over to the base, then the shade, and then back to the super shade. Now I'll blend these together with a clean brush. It's important not to overblend to make this look muddy. We can always go back in and fix it later if we're not happy with it. Now I'll move over to the cove. I'll start with the super shade, then right underneath I'll add the shade, then the base, then I'll add the tint. Using a clean brush, I'll blend these all together. Now, using the shade color and a little bit of water, I'll add some linear texture to the rest of the molding. Allow this step to completely dry before moving on to the next. Once it's dry, I can go back in with the original colors and soften the gradation a little more. Now, using some black and mixing it just with a little bit of water, I'll paint in the area around the molding and define the shape. This will also clean up the edge from the paint that we ran long when we blended. Now, using the super shade as a low light, I'll line the bottom of the cove. I'll determine the light source, which is coming from the top right, and I'll line the side away from the light source on the dentils. so here it's on the left. And I'll also line the bottom of the dentals with a low light. Now using the tint as the highlight, I'll highlight the right side of the dentals facing towards the light source. I'll also line the top of the molding with the highlight. Now I'll mix a tint wash using white and the highlight color with a lot of water. We want this wash to be translucent. I'll use this translucent wash and I'll apply it to the dentals. This will help pull them forward, reinforcing the illusion that they're protruding. I'll do the same with the top of the molding. Here I'm just adding the tint wash on top of the highlight just to brighten it up a little bit. Still not happy with the blending, so I'm going to go back in and touch it up a little bit and soften the gradation. Now I'll mix the shadow wash with some mauve and some black, and I'll mix in a lot of water. Then I'll test the transparency on a scrap piece of watercolor paper. Now I'll cast a shadow under the cove onto the dentals. I'll also cast a shadow of the dentals onto the molding, based on where the light source is coming from. Now I'll cast the shadow between the dentals. This shadow should be a little bit wider as it's going back a bit further. Now I'll cast a shadow from the Roman-O-Gi onto the molding below. And finally, I'll cast a shadow under the Roman-O-Gi and the cove. Now I'll use some colored pencils similar to the 4 colors we started with, and I'll use them just to blend a little bit further, softening the gradation and giving it a little more texture. Now I'll add a cut line with a straight edge and a Sharpie, just to clean up those edges. And that's it. You're done.